how an unexpected encounter with his father transformed her life from trapped to amazing. Sarah trudged home after another night shift, fatigue seeping through her bones like the chill of the Midwestern air. The familiar streets flickered under the muted glow of street lamps, casting long shadows that danced in rhythm with her heavy heart. Each day blurred into the next, an endless cycle of nursing shifts, empty coffee cups, and the haunting echoes of her mother laughing in their now silent apartment. At 38, the dreams she once cradled of advocating for healthcare reforms, of becoming a voice for the voiceless, had withered under the suffocating weight of economic hardship and systemic neglect. She felt like a ghost in a system that had long since forgotten her. Then, out of nowhere, he appeared, Gary, the man whose absence shaped her childhood, whose name conjured a mosaic of pain and resentment. As disbelief washed over her like ice water, emotions warred within her. Why now? Didn't he have the decency to stay away? Yet, beneath the anger lay a flicker of curiosity. What had his life become in the years he'd been gone? Their first conversation unfolded reluctantly, words coated with bitterness and the sharp edges of past wounds. Each question felt like a knife, slicing through years of estrangement and hurt, while Gary's responses dripped with a surprising humility. Over cups of coffee in a corner diner, the tension gradually transformed. The bitterness started to unravel as Gary spoke of his struggles, his unfinished architectural dreams buried under insecurities. Each revelation pulled at Sarah's heartstrings, igniting a buried hope that maybe, just maybe, there was more to his story than she had ever justified. But as she wrestled with these new nuances of their relationship, an uncomfortable truth clawed at her. Could she forgive the man who had left them to fend for themselves? The spiraling thoughts ensnared her, raising the question that looped relentlessly in her mind. Was forgiveness even an option for someone who had caused so much pain? She hesitated, feeling the weight of her decisions tighten like a noose around her throat. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself battling against a rising tide of ambition ignited by Gary's confessions. The revelation of his unfinished projects sparked a fierce determination in her. If her father could strive to acknowledge his past despite grievous errors, perhaps she could pull herself from the shadows of despair. Yet with every step she took towards her goals, initiatives aimed at improving healthcare access, undercurrents of resistance from those protectively entrenched in the system mocked her efforts. The weight of potential failure loomed like a dark thundercloud. What if she risked everything only to fall short? Her father's artistic talents began to haunt her dreams. The thought of constructing a life outside the suffocating passage of her routine led her to question her self-worth. The parallels between her own struggles and Gary's choices tangled in her mind, tightening a knot within her chest. But what terrified her most wasn't the opposition she faced or the challenges ahead. It was becoming trapped once again in the memories that haunted her, caught beneath old grudges while trying to forge a new path. Then, just as she felt the firm ground beneath her, a shocking revelation curled around her heart. Corruption lurked within the hospital's leadership, striking at the core of her resolve. Fear coursed through her veins as uncertainty settled in, a cruel reminder of the fragile reconciliation she had begun with Gary. Could she expose this injustice and risk losing everything, including the hope of mending their fractured bond? The question pressed hard against her consciousness. Was breaking free truly possible, or would she remain shackled by the shadows of her past? The muffled sound of phones ringing and the clatter of medical equipment echoed through the hospital corridors, a stark reminder of the battle Sarah found herself preparing for. Every day, as she donned her scrubs, the creeping dread mixed with an unfamiliar excitement about uncovering the truth thrummed beneath her skin. The whispers of corruption twisted her desire for change into a raw urgency. If she hesitated, she would be allowing complacency to win, an outcome she could no longer accept. Thoughts of Gary lingered at the edges of her consciousness. His vulnerability had unearthed a latent resolve within her, yet uncertainty loomed just as heavy. If she confronted the status quo, a climate rife with dishonesty, would it elevate her past grievances with him into something meaningful, or would it push him away once again? As she entered the staff room for a short break, she caught sight of a colleague scrolling through a local news site. A headline caught her attention. "Scandal brews in local hospital, allegations of mismanagement." Her heart raced. This was the opening she needed. Engaging with the article led to a flurry of thoughts. Beneath the surface of her profession lay a web of potential stories waiting to be told, enough to back up her claims. With newfound clarity, Sarah resolved to be the one to illuminate the deceit. But fear shadowed her determination. What if she faced retaliation? What if the system retaliated in ways she couldn't anticipate? Each question echoed in her mind, eroding her resolve even as she felt the fire of her mission reignite. Late shifts turned into stealthy research sessions. Sarah pored over records, uncovering discrepancies that led her deeper into the murky waters of bureaucratic bureaucracy. Malpractice. Sleepless nights further strained her delicate balance between exhaustion and the thrill of her discovery. She began meeting colleagues, cautiously probing them about their experiences and gathering anonymity-confirmed stories of negligence and malpractice. The bonds she formed with her fellow nurses flourished. In their shared frustrations lay the truth she sought to expose. Yet, the more she learned, the more she recognized how dangerously entrenched the corruption was. Senior doctors she respected appeared complicit, their reputations coated in layers of silence. Each conversation she had regarding her newfound findings felt like walking a tightrope, balancing on the threshold of impending danger. Would she have the courage to take a leap into the unknown? With each weekend visit to her father, where the conversation gradually shifted from strained to surprisingly candid, Sarah found a parallel journey of personal discovery unfolding. The father she once resented and blamed for her hardships became a reflection of her fears and insecurities. His warning about the risks of confronting authority resonated deeply within her. She took it not as a deterrent, but a challenge. Perhaps she could redirect that fear, channel it into a force that pushed against the current instead of submitting to it. Every evening after work, she documented her findings meticulously. Each page turned into a testament of her battles, both with the system and herself. As another sleepless night unfolded, surrounded by scattered papers, her mind raced with thoughts of the consequences of her quest. Could she hold on to the hope for healing her relationship with Gary while charging ahead to expose the corruption? Or was her determination to uncover the truth going to leave her more isolated than ever? But just when she felt herself on the verge of an awakening, she received an ominous message, a veiled threat from an anonymous source warning her to cease her inquiries into the hospital's dealings. The note trembled in her hands, shaking her resolve. But it solidified her inner fire. This was no longer just a pursuit of reform. It had transformed into a personal mission of survival against those who would keep secrets for their gain. As fear slithered back into her heart, she stood at a crossroads. The question now loomed larger than ever. Who was she willing to become in her quest for truth, and at what cost? The air thick with determination, she prepared to face both the ghosts of her past and the formidable challenges ahead. The moment for reckoning had arrived, and she knew it would demand everything she had in a way she never imagined possible. She couldn't turn back. This was just the beginning. As the weight of the note settled in her mind, Sarah's heart drummed against her ribcage, each thud echoing her relentless pursuit of the truth. Taking a deep breath, she steadied her trembling hands, trying to shake off the dread that clung to her. It was becoming clear. Making headway against the corruption she encountered would demand not only determination, but an unwavering resolve to stand her ground, even when faced with direct threats. The following day at work felt distinctly charged. Each interaction with her colleagues ignited the subtle tension lurking just beneath the surface. Conversations that once flowed easily now felt laden with unspoken fears. She exchanged knowing glances with Melanie, a fellow nurse she had confided in about a few of her findings. Today, Melanie's wariness was palpable. Was it just paranoia, or were they now living in a pressing state of surveillance? In the break room, Sarah caught snippets of hushed conversations about staffing shortages and rising patient complaints. "They can't keep covering it up forever," she heard one of the doctors mutter half-heartedly. Sarah felt a flicker of kinship with this voice, a chance to connect over the shared dread of an unraveling reality. Each word ignited a spark of courage within her. She needed to be tactical yet bold. Realizing that isolation could become her enemy, Sarah reached out to Melanie again. "We need to talk," she whispered as the other nurses filtered out of the room. In the dim light of the hospital's rooftop, they faced each other against a backdrop of eclectic city sounds. The chatter of pedestrians below reminded Sarah of the lives at stake, not just theirs, but the patients who relied on the integrity of their care. "I received a threat," she confessed, the weight of the admission almost overwhelming her. "But I won't back down. This isn't just about us. It's about every single person who's been wronged." Melanie's expression softened, allowing understanding to glimmer in her eyes. "Then we're in this together," she declared, a resolve shimmering in her voice that sent a rush of adrenaline through Sarah's veins. This alliance could be the turning point. Together, they could compile their findings into something powerful, something undeniable. With constellations of possibilities lighting up her mind, Sarah began to draft a guerrilla strategy for revealing the truth. They would discreetly gather evidence, amplify their experiences, and strengthen their narrative with testimonies from those too afraid to speak. But unknown to Sarah, the eyes of a silent antagonist remained trained on their every move. A meeting with Dr. Harper, the very physician she once admired, pressured her even further into a corner. His calm demeanor now masked layers of secrets. When he asked her about her late-night shifts and whispered inquiries, she felt a chill run through her, a prickling awareness that he wasn't just concerned, he was watching. "How much do you really know, Sarah?" His question was framed with feigned concern, yet echoed with menace. It was at this moment she realized their adversary's manipulation could extend beyond her fears, taking on a sinister format if she allowed it. A new challenge emerged, seeping into her mind. How could she engage Dr. Harper without alerting him to her actual intentions? Each interaction would have to be strategic, layered with feigned naivety, while fortifying their mission in the shadows. As the sun cast shadows across the rooftop, Sarah recognized that every decision from this point would require not only her acumen as a nurse, but also a cunningness she was only beginning to discover within herself. This revelation felt revolutionary. The more she navigated this treacherous game, the more she understood. Her life was not merely entangled in the institution's corruption, it was evolving into a personal quest for agency and integrity. With every ounce of courage, she prepared to face her fears anew, knowing that what was at stake expanded beyond her. Inevitably, it became a defining moment for who she would choose to be. The time had come to confront the powerful forces lurking within the corridors of her world, to rise above the chains of the past, and to challenge the shadows threatening to drown her ambitious spark. Yet, as she stepped away from the rooftop, the chilling reminder of the threat loomed in her thoughts. Each step forward was steeped in danger, each commitment layered with the price of discovery. Could she strategically maneuver through the chaos unscathed, or would her quest for truth render her vulnerable to the forces trying to silence her? Just as she resolved to push deeper into the darkness for answers, a sudden notification pinged on her phone, rerouting her attention. It was a message from an unknown number, unbelievably ominous. "You don't know who you're dealing with." The grip of fear tightened around Sarah as she read the ominous message again, her heart racing. The threat felt real and visceral. It wasn't just a digital warning. It was a culmination of the tension that had been building, a shadow that loomed larger with each passing day. She knew the stakes were escalating rapidly. After a moment's hesitation, Sarah tucked her phone into her pocket, steeling herself as she made her way back inside the hospital. The air felt electric, every whisper and hurried footfall amplifying her sense of urgency. She felt the need to act swiftly. Standing still would only expose her to further danger. As she entered the bustling nursing station, she spotted Melanie deep in conversation with another nurse, their voices low and tense. Sarah's chest tightened with unease as she approached. It was crucial they maintain their connection if they were to execute their plan without fail. "Did you see the message?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Melanie's face hardened. "Yes, it's getting serious, Sarah. We need to be careful. One misstep could alert them to what we're doing." Sarah nodded, a surge of determination fueling her next words. "We can't let fear dictate our actions. We've got to keep going, but we need more intel, information that will help us make our case airtight." Melanie's eyes narrowed as she considered the challenge. "Agreed, but we need to be smart about this. How do we even start?" A plan began to form in Sarah's mind, a blend of strategic observation and the leveraging of hidden opportunities. Let's focus on the staff who have been vocal about their concerns. They might have more insights into what's really happening behind the scenes. If we compile their stories and combine them with the data on patient complaints, we could unveil a pattern. Melanie visibly relaxed for a split second, a flicker of hope igniting between them. "You're right, but we have to tread carefully. Dr. Harper is always watching, and he's more perceptive than we give him credit for." As they continued discussing their strategy, Sarah felt a shift within herself. Once motivated by fear, her resolve had transformed into a fierce commitment to unearth the truth. This was no longer just about survival. It was about fighting for justice and fostering systemic change. Each night, as the bustling hospital quieted, Sarah revised her comprehensive plan, delving into the nuances of the corruption they aimed to expose. With every piece of evidence meticulously gathered, she felt herself adapt and grow, becoming more resourceful, bolder, and, perhaps, against all odds, embarking on a path of leadership she had never anticipated. Yet shadows lurked ever closer. With Dr. Harper's watchful eye on her, the labyrinth of deceit became more intricate. She found herself rehearsing conversations in her head, instinctively tapping into a performance that felt foreign but necessary. It was during one of her shifts that Sarah's thoughts became a battleground. As she engaged Dr. Harper in see-through small talk, her internal dialogue ricocheted between her desire for authenticity and the need for subterfuge. The weight of her mission loomed larger. Could her facade withstand the pressure without risking exposure? Was she being too cautious or not cautious enough? Later, as she sat in the solitude of the break room, she felt a sudden rush of self-awareness. This wasn't just a fight against systemic oppression. It was a fight for her very essence, to buck the trends that had confined her. Then, just before her shift ended, her phone buzzed again. This time, the message was even more troubling. Another thread in a web of intimidation. The truth won't save you. Uncertainty lanced through her. Would the revelations they sought be enough to shield her? Or had she stepped too far into enemy territory? The emerging strength within her clashed with the dread of her newfound reality. As she locked eyes with Melanie across the room, a silent determination passed between them. The transformation was palpable. They were no longer just victims. They were emerging as warriors in a battle against corruption. But in this war for truth, the stakes were high, and the cost could be devastating. Awash in adrenaline and vulnerability, Sarah realized true bravery sometimes meant confronting the very demons that sought to silence her. She had taken a stand, albeit precariously balanced, and she was determined to see it through to the perilous end. But as the clock ticked down to her next rendezvous with destiny, one burning question remained. What additional sacrifices would she need to make to emerge victorious? Fluorescent lights of the hospital flickered, casting an unsettling glow as Sarah brewed another cup of coffee. It was past midnight, and the break room was mostly empty, save for the low hum of the machines and the distant sound of hurried footsteps echoing through the corridors. Alone with her thoughts, she grappled with the looming pressure of her mission. As the aroma of coffee filled the air, Sarah's mind drifted to her encounters with Dr. Harper during past shifts. Each interaction had turned into a mental chess match where she'd attempted to maintain her cover while probing for information. The quiet whispers she had gathered about patient complaints began to form a chaotic tapestry of misconduct. But the deeper she delved, the more intricate and dangerous the game became. The new threat lingering in her inbox felt like a knife sharpening with every message she received. In that moment of brewing adrenaline, the realization dawned on her. This fight was not just about the patients. It was an internal battle as well. Each choice laid bare not only her responsibilities to her colleagues and the patients, but also her role in a broader narrative of courage versus fear. She was not simply gathering evidence, she was battling to define herself in a world dictated by others' expectations. With the coffee ready, she took a sip, the bitter taste igniting a fire within her. The next step had to be more than a mere collection of stories and complaints. She needed a strategy, a precise execution of her growing vision for change. Her mind raced as she pondered the voices of her colleagues, whom she had slowly begun to gather. People like Roger, who had noticed discrepancies in the prescription logs, and Claire, who had shared whispers of hurried discharges of unstable patients. They were all pieces in a puzzle, but how to fit them together without attracting scrutiny? Sarah opened her notebook, pages filled with hastily written observations, and began to outline a plan. She needed to conduct clandestine interviews, perhaps in neutral locations, away from the hospital's watchful surveillance. The more she contemplated, the more she felt her heart pound, a mix of excitement and trepidation. Her potential to lead this charge was blossoming, and the seedlings of her newfound strength demanded nurturing. Later, she was jolted from her thoughts when a figure slipped into the break room, the familiar silhouette of Melanie. Her expression was tense but determined. "We need to talk," she said, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "I found someone who can help us." "Who?" Sarah asked, instinctively scanning the room for eavesdroppers. "Liam, one of the techs in IT. He's noticed irregularities in the systems. He can help us uncover digital evidence, potentially traces of wrongdoing in the hospital's database." Melanie's eyes sparkled with the promise of new hope. Sarah hesitated, the implications of involving an outsider weighing heavily in her mind. But if Dr. Harper gets a whiff of this, he's already suspected something, Sarah. We need to act before he tightens the noose any further. Melanie leaned closer, her voice barely a murmur. This could be our breakthrough. Taking a deep breath, Sarah felt the weight of the decision. The inherent risks of recruiting Liam were palpable, yet the prospect of furthering their cause, of transforming their shared fears into tangible action, pulled her. She was standing at the edge of her old self, the timid nurse who had kept her head down, ready to leap into something profoundly liberating and terrifying. While fear and dread coursed through her veins, so did a burgeoning sense of urgency. She was no longer just a participant in this game, she was an architect of change. "Let's do it," she replied, her voice steady. "Set up a meeting for tomorrow. We can't waste any time." As Melanie nodded, they shared a moment of silent affirmation. This wasn't just a plan, it was the ignition of a movement. But in the shadowy depths of the hospital, Dr. Harper watched from afar, his eyes narrowing. He sensed the discontent brewing within the walls. The unspoken confrontation loomed ahead, each side preparing for an inevitable clash. Sarah could feel the coming storm, and the question now lingered in her mind. Would her newfound courage be enough to sustain her as the stakes grew higher? As dawn broke, the pale morning light infiltrated the hospital's clinical corridors, painting them in soft hues. Sarah arrived, her heart still racing from the intensity of her last night's resolve. The taste of coffee lingered on her lips, a bitter reminder of her audacious plans. Today, she would meet Liam, a crucial piece of the puzzle, and the truth about the hospital would inch closer to the surface. As she made her way to the IT department, each footstep felt heavier with anticipation and anxiety. Would Liam live up to Melanie's promise? In the past, Sarah had hesitated to seek help, but the stakes had risen. This was not merely about her anymore. Lives hung in the balance, and that knowledge shifted her internal landscape from doubt to determination. Approaching the door marked IT, she took a deep breath. Behind this threshold lay not just a technician, but a potential ally who could elevate her mission to a realm she hadn't dared to explore before. Tapping gently, she opened the door, revealing a dimly lit room buzzing with machines and computers. "Sarah," Liam greeted her, looking up from a jumble of cables and screens. "You're here. Melanie told me you might stop by." "Thanks for meeting me," she replied, masking her nerves beneath a veneer of professionalism. As they sat at a cluttered workstation, Sarah could see the trepidation mirrored in Liam's eyes. "So, Melanie says you're looking for something," he began, hesitating as if gauging her intent. "Yes," the word escaped her more urgently than she intended. "I need evidence. I believe there's misconduct happening here, and I need someone who can help me navigate the digital trail." The mention of misconduct sparked a glimmer of recognition. "I've seen some oddities," he admitted, glancing around before continuing. "Unusual access to confidential records and discrepancies in patient data." Each revelation tethered her deeper to her mission, igniting a fire of resolve within her. Sarah reciprocated with her findings, laying bare the whispers of her colleagues, the fear that had encircled their work lives like a noose. Liam leaned closer, intrigued, his fingers poised over the keyboard, ready to embark on this digital investigation. Facing him, Sarah felt a surge of clarity. She was no longer just a nurse, she was evolving into a detective, a crusader for the vulnerable. Sarah reciprocated with her findings, laying bare the whispers of her colleagues, the fear that had encircled their work lives like a noose. Liam leaned closer, intrigued, his fingers poised over the keyboard, ready to embark on this digital investigation. Facing him, Sarah felt a surge of clarity. She was no longer just a nurse, she was evolving into a detective, a crusader for the vulnerable. The weight of her fears began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of purpose she hadn't known existed within her. "Let's run some diagnostics," Liam said, his voice steadier now. "We can look into the database and find out who's been accessing what. If there is something wrong, I can help expose it." As they delved into the computer screens, a palpable tension enveloped them. Sarah absorbed every detail, her focus unwavering as the data unfolded secrets in digital shadows. Each click pushed her further along the path toward confrontation, a path lined with the fears and lives of those she sought to protect. Yet, even as the excitement built, a nagging doubt lingered. What would happen when the truths emerged? Would she have the strength to face the inevitable fallout? Once revealed, there would be no going back, no retreating to the comfort of anonymity. Completing their initial search, Liam's expression shifted as he turned to her. "I think we're onto something. This isn't just standard procedure. It feels wrong. But if Dr. Harper catches wind..." The threat was clear. Facing the head of the department meant any misstep could unravel not just their plans, but the very fabric of their careers and lives. Sarah steeled herself. It was one thing to momentarily evade the challenges of her past, but confronting Dr. Harper was a different battle altogether. "I know the risk," Sarah said, her voice both a whisper and a vow. "But if we find proof, we can't shy away from using it." With their strategy forming, Sarah discovered yet another layer of herself, one capable of both leadership and defiance. She was becoming the catalyst for change, not just for herself, but for her colleagues and patients. As they prepared for the next steps, her heart raced with anticipation. It was time to mobilize her allies and confront the lies. Would they align behind her purpose, or would fear keep them shackled in silence? Outside, the hospital bustled with unwitting patients, but Sarah felt the currents of change swirling around her. The confrontation loomed closer, and the clock was ticking. Would she step into the light, or would shadows consume her steps? The moment had come to choose a side. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as Sarah and Liam analyzed the data streaming across the screens. Each number and name that scrolled by intensified her resolve, further dissecting her perceived limitations. Gone was the timid nurse who had avoided confrontation. Now she was a determined investigator, one with the potential to reveal a truth that had been buried beneath layers of fear and deception. "Look at this," Liam pointed to a line of code that seemed anomalous. "This access log doesn't match up with any of the staff schedules. Someone's been logging in far more than they should. We need to correlate this with the incident reports from the past few months." Sarah leaned closer, feeling her pulse quicken. "We need to find out why. Was it just routine data, or were they manipulating records?" Calculated questions danced in her mind, constructing a framework around her burgeoning instinct for investigation. The uncertainty of her previous hesitations and doubts began to dissolve, replaced by tangible energy surging through her veins. She could feel the dormant parts of herself awakening. Intelligent, perceptive, someone who was meant for more than merely signing off on medication. As they pieced the puzzle together, Sarah's mind wandered back to the stories shared in hushed voices around the nursing station. Fear had been the common thread running through every conversation, an invisible straitjacket that constrained her colleagues. Now she realized that her pursuit was not just for her own peace of mind, but for the sake of those who felt trapped, just as she once had. "Liam, what if we find evidence?" she asked, her voice tempered with a mixture of eagerness and trepidation. "What would be our next move?" He paused, looking at her with newfound respect. "We'd need to take it to HR or bring it directly to the board. But that means we'd have to be ready for retaliation from Dr. Harper. He will not take this lightly." The gravity of Liam's words weighed on her. The thought of facing Dr. Harper, whose dominance in the hospital was palpably intimidating, was daunting. Yet, amidst the fear, a flicker of defiance ignited. They had to confront the shadows lurking in the corners of their hospital. Yes, but if we don't act, who's going to think of the patients? We can't let fear dictate our choices. They exchanged a charged glance, both recognizing that they stood at a precipice. Hours stretched into what felt like days, their concentration unyielding as they dug deep into files and reports, piecing together illicit patterns that reverberated through the cogs of the institution. When the sun dipped below the horizon, it cast an orange glow through the narrow windows, illuminating uncharted territory, a transformation both groundbreaking and terrifying. "What about others?" she finally asked, her voice steady but low. "We can't expose ourselves alone. We need support." Liam nodded, a spark flickering in his eyes. "We could approach a few trusted colleagues, if they're willing to stand with us." Intrigue and fear intertwined in Sarah's heart, but she recognized the necessity of alliances. "We have to find those willing to fight. There are whispers of discontent in every corner of this hospital. Maybe we can convert their frustration into action." As they prepared to reach out, Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline. This mission was blazing a new path for her, a chance to exercise her nascent leadership qualities and rise against the oppressive forces attempting to maintain control. Just then, there was a knock at the door, interrupting their fervor. The moment seemed to stretch. Sarah's heart sank as the handle turned. Her mind raced ahead to the worst possibilities. Who could it be? If it was someone sent by Dr. Harper, all could be lost before they had even begun to act. The door creaked open, and Sarah held her breath. Would this be the moment the tides turned irreparably for her and her mission, or would it be the harbinger of their downfall? A tall figure stepped through the door, silhouetted against the harsh lights of the workstation. Sarah's heart raced, caught between anticipation and dread. As the figure drew closer, her uncertainty crystallized into recognition. "Dr. Harper," she breathed, her voice a mixture of shock and defiance. He was a commanding presence, with an air of control that seemed to crush any semblance of resistance in the room. "Sarah, Liam, I trust you're not working too hard," he said, a disingenuous smile plastered across his face. There was an underlying menace beneath his joviality, one that turned her stomach as she braced herself for a confrontation. "Just reviewing some logs," Liam replied, his voice steady, though Sarah detected a quiver of anxiety. Dr. Harper's gaze sharpened, scanning the multitude of screens. "I hope you're not jumping to conclusions. Misinterpreting data can lead to disastrous outcomes." Though his words were casual, the implication was clear. Sarah felt the walls close in, but years of suppressing her voice gave way to newfound determination. "We're just doing our job, Dr. Harper. It's our responsibility to ensure everything is above board." He stepped further into the office, his demeanor shifting to one of predatory interest. "Is that really your concern, or are you just afraid of what you might uncover?" Her hands clenched into fists, awakening a resilience she thought she lacked. "I think it's about time we uncover the truth, don't you?" A flicker of amusement crossed his face, but more than that, it sparked a reckless bravado within her. Still, she knew this was only the beginning of what lay ahead. It was time to gamble. "Do you really believe you're equipped to fight this battle?" he challenged, leaning closer, almost tauntingly. "You and your little partner here?" The word partner leapt painfully from his lips. If only he knew the power they had within the depths of their investigation. A shiver ran down her spine, but she quickly bolstered her resolve. "We might be small in numbers, but our commitment is anything but weak. We care about this hospital and the people in it." For a fraction of a second, she saw surprise flicker in his expression before it hardened again. Sometimes caring too much can lead you to dangerous places, Sarah. Be careful where you tread, he warned, stepping back and adjusting his blazer with an ironic air of concern. His parting words hung in the air, thick with both threat and warning. Once he left, she turned to Liam, exhaling a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Was she really ready to confront Dr. Harper? Did she have it within her to stand ground against such deep-rooted power? "Sarah," Liam began, his voice laced with urgency. "This changes everything. If he's aware of our investigation—" "I know." The possibilities swirled in her mind, confronting and invigorating her. The stakes were higher now, and their mission needed to pivot. They would gather their allies, but even more crucial was the refinement of their approach. They had to be smart. They had to think steps ahead. "We need a plan," she said, a new sense of authority punctuating her tone. Not just a reactive one, but a proactive strategy that pulls in others without drawing her ire. As they began strategizing, Sarah realized that every moment from here on would test her, forcing her to grow into the leader she aspired to be. In the coming days, she would forge alliances, dig deeper into the invasive log data, and prepare to unearth the relics of deception that lay hidden in their midst. But what if those she tried to ally with weren't as willing to join her cause as she hoped? Would her bravery be met with ridicule or worse, betrayal? As the fluorescent lights flickered, Sarah felt the tumultuous pulse of something greater awakening inside her, a change that could either liberate or ensnare her. The next few days blurred together as Sarah delved deeper into her new role, her focus sharpening like never before. Every decision weighed heavily on her shoulders. Each step forward felt like a calculated risk. The stakes were tangible. She envisioned a network of support, colleagues she could trust, allies who shared her vision. Yet doubt simmered beneath her resolve. She yearned for reassurance, for validation of her choices. Early conversations with potential allies were met with mixed responses. Some listened intently, their expressions wavering between intrigue and skepticism. Others barely concealing their mistrust. "You really think it's safe to challenge Dr. Harper?" one nurse asked, skepticism lacing her tone. Sarah felt the weight of the question push down on her, a reminder of the very real danger lurking just beyond her initiative. "Safety isn't guaranteed, but silence is complicity," she retorted, her voice firmer than she felt. The words tasted foreign, yet empowering. She understood now that the risk of inaction surpassed the peril of confrontation. After an exhausting day at the hospital, Sarah and Liam gathered in the corner of the employee lounge, a small sanctuary away from the prying eyes of authority. The fluorescent lights hummed softly as tired employees shuffled past, each lost in their own world of routines and deadlines. Liam looked at her, a mix of admiration and concern swirling in his eyes. "We need to analyze the data we've compiled more strategically," Liam suggested, initiating the quiet brainstorming session that had become their nightly ritual. He leaned closer, spreading a chaotic array of papers across the table. "Let's focus directly on the log discrepancies. If we can expose even one significant error, it might swing the tide in our favor." Sarah nodded, her heart racing with the urgency of their mission. She felt emboldened, and every moment spent aligning their strategy only deepened her sense of purpose. After hours of meticulous planning, their ideas morphed into a resolute framework. Yet, a nagging concern crept into her thoughts. "Liam," she began hesitantly, "what if all of this leads nowhere? What if no one believes us?" "You can't let doubt cloud your resolve, Sarah," he replied, the conviction in his voice reaching her core. His words felt like an anchor, steadying her in the storm of anxiety. "We've seen enough. It's time we act on it." With fresh determination, Sarah devised their first move, an anonymous tip to the hospital board. However, just as they prepared the draft, an unsettling thought struck her. Was she prepared to face the potential outcome? Dr. Harper was more than just a boss. He was a powerful figure, connected, influential. They could easily retaliate against her, silencing her voice and turning the entire staff against her as a warning. Yet, that very thought ignited a fire inside her. Fear was a chain she refused to wear. She envisioned shedding every doubt, every constraint. "Let's transmit it tomorrow," she said, with an assuredness that surprised her. "We have to take this leap, no matter the risk." Liam smiled, a glimmer of hope illuminating his expression. Together. The next morning, as she prepared to hit send on the email, Sarah's mind reeled. Would this action redefine her or tighten the noose? Was she strong enough to lead a possible revolt? Her finger hovered over the mouse, adrenaline thrumming through her veins. In that moment of hesitation, she had to confront something deeper, her identity, her worth. Did she consider herself a mere cog in a machine, or could she transform into the very catalyst capable of dismantling corruption? She pressed the button. Relief mingled with anxiety as the screen flashed confirmation. She took a deep breath, aware that she had just crossed a threshold from which there was no return. But the looming specter of Dr. Harper's response hovered overhead like a storm cloud, a reminder that the fight was only beginning. What would be the repercussions? Would alliances crumble under pressure? Or would her bravery inspire others to rise in solidarity? With a tightened grip on her resolve, Sarah prepared for the consequences, whatever they might be. And deep inside, she sensed an evolution, not just in her circumstances, but within herself. As the days unfolded, and uncertainty festered, she realized her quiet awakening had wrought change. But the true test loomed ahead. The time had come to face unforeseen consequences as the first cracks appeared in the facade of authority. Would she be ready to confront those who held power, or would she buckle under the weight of their threat? The following weeks were fraught with tension, each day pulsating with the repercussions of Sarah's bold decision. The air crackled with unease in the hospital as whispers of her anonymous tip circulated among the staff. Dr. Harper's previously polished demeanor had morphed into something darker, a palpable hostility that electrified the environment. It became evident that he was onto her, and those aligned with him seemed to be biding their time, waiting for the moment to strike. As Sarah navigated the corridors, a swirl of anxiety accompanied each interaction. Colleagues' faces bore a mix of admiration and fear, unsure of how to approach her. To some, she was a harbinger of change. To others, a reckless instigator. The uncertainty gnawed at her speedily, a blend of excitement and the stark reality of her circumstances. But amidst all this chaos, Sarah found a sense of clarity radiating from within her. The personal stakes had risen dramatically. Her motivations grew beyond the mere desire to expose corruption. They morphed into a quest for accountability, a relentless drive to ensure that her patients received the care and respect they deserved. With each passing day, she recognized her capacity for leadership, her ability to inspire others, and the profound weight of her responsibility. Early one morning, the tranquil chaos of the hospital peaked as a colleague approached her with urgency. Claire, a nurse well regarded for her integrity, bore a look of significance. "Sarah, can we talk?" she asked, glancing around as if she were worried they were being watched. They slipped into the break room. "I heard about the tip," Claire began, her voice low yet steady. "People are scared, but they're also inspired. There is talk of wanting to come forward. I'm in. I'll stand with you. We all deserve better." A wash of relief flooded over Sarah. As she listened, a powerful realization ignited within her. The realization that the spark she had lit was beginning to catch fire. Others were ready to join her movement, prepared to take a stand against their oppressors as a united front. It was a galvanizing moment. With newfound determination, Sarah began devising a plan. They would gather stories and evidence from those willing to speak out. Justice would not come only from her. It would emerge from the collective will of those whose voices had been silenced. As the days turned into weeks, the atmosphere within the hospital teetered precariously. The growing unease surrounding Dr. Harper was palpable. Complaints about the management cycle of the hospital skyrocketed. Sarah organized meetings in secret, fostering an atmosphere of solidarity and camaraderie among her colleagues. Every evening, she and Melanie, Liam, and a handful of other nurses would huddle together, sharing anecdotes, drafting new strategies, and gathering the courage to speak out. They shared stories of negligence and denial that had stifled their profession, the sparks of discontent gathering to form a blaze of truth. The pressure shattered when at last, during an agonizingly tense staff meeting, a senior doctor openly confronted Dr. Harper, citing specific grievances and deficiencies that had maddened the staff. The room was charged with an electric recognition. Other colleagues began to interject, emboldened by the fray. Sarah stood at the back, feeling her heart surge with hope. This was their moment. A collective stand against the corruption that weighed heavily on their shoulders. As the tide turned among her peers, she felt the once constricting shackles of fear loosening, as if the atmosphere itself was liberating them. Then the unthinkable happened. Dr. Harper, visibly shaken, launched a desperate counteroffensive. Instead of imposing fear, he boasted about the hospital's successes while projecting nothing but intimidating scrutiny towards Sarah and her allies. Yet his facade cracked under the pressure of the unity that engulfed the room. "Enough!" Sarah finally shouted, her voice piercing through the tense atmosphere. "We owe it to our patients, our colleagues, and ourselves to stand firm and demand accountability." The room erupted. Conversations clashed against one another like a tsunami breaking free, voices rising in a chorus of realization. This was not merely about Sarah. This became a moment of collective recognition and reclamation of voices that had long been subdued. As they rallied against the corrupt practices within their institution, Sarah began to transform. The scared, wearied woman who trudged home after night shifts became a resolute advocate for change. She had taken her building bricks of fear and scandal and crafted a foundation of strength and purpose. Months later, after an arduous investigation led by external authorities into the hospital's internal practices, Sarah stood alongside her colleagues as the walls barricaded by lies crumbled. Patients received justice, top management was held accountable, and reforms were put into place to safeguard the populations they served. Sarah felt relief wash over her as the press celebrated their courage and fortitude. Her name was in the headlines, but more importantly, so were the stories of her comrades. Every voice mattered. And with every success, recognition transformed into personal validation. She had allowed herself to emerge from the shadows. Now, as she walked through the hospital corridors, a wave of gratitude enveloped her. She had proved to herself and to countless others that confronting fear and chaos head-on could create ripples of change. The journey would continue, but her bedrock was now forged by resilience and purpose. Sarah had undoubtedly achieved not only professional recognition, but personal growth. She was respected, a leader. Turning back now was impossible. She had conquered doubts, cleared paths, and ignited a movement that evolved from her courageous decision. Equipped with unwavering resolve, she faced each day knowing she had transformed not just her life, but the lives of many around her. Now is your moment. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss any exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to show your support and to help us fuel the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's inspiring journey and what it means for you. And for goodness sake, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the truths revealed in this story. Your support truly matters.